So, now my tablets don't work. There we go. Oh, there you go. Now, I was expecting not to be able to speak this morning, never mind sing, because last night I played for 3 hours at the Wheel Tapper in town, doing a gig there. Normally, an artist would do like an hour and a half, a couple of 45-minute sets, but not there. Just keep going, oh, more, keep going. No. So, if I appear slightly croaky, you'll know why. And if I fall asleep halfway through my address, thank you, yeah. Just as you normally do, yeah. Yeah, because it was about 1:30 when I left the pub this morning. So, it's just a normal weekend for me, to be honest. So who am I then? Well, I'm Rob Newton. You may not know, or you may know, I'm the pastor at the Methodist Church just around the corner up the road. I've been there for about 3.5 years. Yeah. Okay, somebody remembers. Which I try to remember, but yeah, and it's been entertaining, and
has it been informative?
Some of it has, yes. So yeah, yeah. For some reason or other, my address was on page 3 when I was not start there. And I'd just like to say at the start, this is a Christmas shirt. One of my lads bought me this for Christmas. It's got proper French cuffs and cufflinks, and I can even wear it with a matching tie that he bought me. It's not that they think I've got no style and that I always dress in army fatigues or olive drab. Actually, yes, it is. That's, if I'm not in jeans, I'm normally dressed in camouflage or some such. So anyway, one of my sons thought he would take the opportunity of Christmas and buy me this lovely shirt. So I thought I'd present you with it this morning.
Tell Liz it's lovely.
I shall, yes, I shall. My wife Liz has gone to the lambing service, so she's dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, a mucky old coat and boots. And I get to dress up and come here, which is lovely. There we go. Right. So, have we got the? Oh, there we go. This is for you to look at. It will become apparent in a bit. I don't know whether has anybody seen this before? Yeah. So some nods, some shaking of the head. Yeah. We'll get to that in a bit because I find this astounding. I think is probably the best way to say it. Absolutely astounding. But anyway, we better look to Scripture because that's why we're here. There is only 3 times in the New Testament when God speaks. Just 3. And we're going to look at all 3 of them this morning. The first, right at the start, is at the baptism of Jesus. Right at the start of his mission, after dropping out of carpentry apprenticeship, after only 18 years or so. It's a long time, wasn't it? He probably got fed up, all right? He wanted to take some time out, go travelling, make some new friends, get some followers on Instagram and the like. And he started at the seaside, as we all do. Actually, it was a riverside, but, we're not going to split hairs too much today. So in Matthew 3, 13 to 17, if you want to follow it, it says this. Then Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. John would have prevented him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and you come to me. But Jesus answered him, let it be so now, for it is proper for us this way to fulfill all righteousness. And then he consented. And when Jesus had been baptized, just as he came up from the water, suddenly the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, this is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. I'll just do that again, shall I? This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. I love the turn of phrase. Well, he was well pleased. So excellent. This story, of course, is also given in Mark 1, 9 to 11 and Luke 3, 21 to 22, if you want to get somebody else's angle on it. And although I was born a Methodist, sorry, just waiting for the repercussions there. There were none. That was quite intriguing. Although I was born a Methodist, I've never heard the voice of God. I have, however, heard the voice of Jesus. I met him many, many years ago when I was about 18. At 17 and a half, I was living in Skegness. I say 17 and a half because that's a bit important. Because when you sign up for the Navy, you sign up to do, you sign up for 9 years. However, they do it on an 18-month notice contract. So after 18 months, you can put in 18 months notice. So the shortest term you can serve is 3 years. Do the maths. However, you have to always read the small print, because what happens is the term doesn't start until you're 18. So for the first 6 months, I was doing it for free, which is no good, isn't it? And then, of course, by the time another 18 months has gone by, you've completely forgotten what you're supposed to do. So when you go and see your DO and say, "Can I put in my notice yet?" And he went, "Yeah, you could have put it in a year ago." And you go, "What?" But right at the start, I've joined my first ship, HMS Antrim, and we went off to sea. I was part of a scheme called the SSAB course, which meant that I was sent off to sea fast, rather than waiting for a ship to be. They sent me off so I can get all the documentation filled in and get accelerated advancement, which is like faster promotion. If somebody thought I was good, never mind. To do that, you have to do everything on board ship, and you have to work like heck and do everything. One of the jobs that I was doing was called Lifebuoy Ghost, and Lifebuoy Ghost is a job where during the night you stand on the end of the flight deck. That's the other end, like the front end, so you can look out towards the back of the ship. It gets confusing, especially if we go to starboard and port and we start doing aft and forward and stuff. But anyway, so I'm looking out towards the back of the ship. My job, my only job, for 4 hours during that evening watch was to look out and listen for anybody falling overboard. That was my job. And there was a little cubby hole in the side of the flight deck wall where they kept stuff for the flight deck. Tools, brooms, buckets, that sort of thing. And if it rained, you could go and hide in this cupboard whilst listening out for people jumping overboard or falling overboard. But of course, apart from the wind that whistles down the sides of the ship and the sound of the engine humming and the ocean milling about underneath you, it's totally silent. In fact, it's so noisy half the time you have to wear ear defenders just so you can protect your ears. It's very, very noisy. So how you're expected to hear anybody if they go, "Ah!" and fall in, I have no idea. The other thing is, of course, is that people don't fall overboard because they're all in bed, except me. I was the only one, well, apart from those on the bridge, obviously, and they've got lights and cups of tea and chairs to sit in, and lovely and warm. But me, no. I'm standing there in a big coat because it's cold. And I'm stood on the end of this flight deck thinking, this is terrible. What the heck am I doing here? This is just a terrible thing to do. Because everybody thinks being in the Navy is exciting. And to be honest, some of it was. But if you was to do it by percentage, you get 2 or 3% where it's actually very exciting. The rest of the time is dull. It is boring, and dull. in equal measures, and cold to boot, yes. So here I was, stood at the end of this flight deck, looking out to sea as the ship disappeared, or the wake disappeared over the end, looking for somebody to fall overboard, which of course they wouldn't. And you get to think, because I'm there for 4 hours. 4 hours is a long time to spend on your own when you could be somewhere better, like asleep in bed. And you think of all sorts of things. You think, I wonder why on earth I came, why I joined up in the first place, why this was better than being in Skegness, even in the winter when they lock the gates and they throw away the key until Easter. Well, you'll get to know about that. Actually, I don't think it's as bad now as it was back in the 70s. And I was considering all this, and you think about life, the universe, and everything. And one of the thoughts that came across me was, I'm the lifebuoy ghost. I'm the one that looks out for anybody who's thinking of jumping overboard. But what would happen if that was me? What would happen if I was the one who was going to jump overboard? I could just pop to the end of the quarterdeck, hop over the guardrail, splosh. And it doesn't matter how much I screamed or shouted or wailed, there's nobody there to hit me. Only me on the flight deck. Nobody, just me. And I thought, well, this is a bit of a to-do. And I went, also, who would care? Who would care if suddenly Abel Seaman Newton was no longer on board? Who would notice? Who would care? And amongst the hubbub of the noise, the engine, the wind, the water, the waves, and a little buzzing sound in the little cubbyhole, which I'm not sure what that was, in amongst all this noise was a very, very quiet voice that whispered, I'd care. And to say I was scared was an understatement. I was convinced somebody was in the little cupboard. So I went, because you do, don't you? You think, this is going on in my head for sure. However, I'm still going to look in the cupboard to see if anybody's there. Of course, there wasn't. There was nobody there. And it was bizarre, but slightly wonderful in equal measures. When I got back to Pompey, later on, I went to a place called Aggie Weston's. Aggie Weston's is a Christian charity group that looks after young sailors. And they take them in and they feed them, obviously, because you can never get fed enough when you're in the forces. And they have sports facilities and that sort of thing. And on Sunday evening, they take you to church. And they take you to a Pentecostal church, which was wild by comparison to the Methodist church that I remember back home. And I don't use the term lightly. Wild was actually the term. When I went in through the door, because first of all, we all walked there from Aggie Weston's into town, into Pompey. And we were going past this building, and I could hear this rock and roll music coming out of the room. And I laughingly said to the chap that I was with, this sounds good, shall we go in here? And he turned around and said, yes, that's where we're going. And I went, wait, what? I thought we were going to church. He said, yeah, we are. And I went, what? And the bloke at the front, dressed in black with a dog collar, was playing lead guitar and doing one heck of a solo on his axe. Fantastic. And I thought, this is strange and yet very wonderful. I've never looked back as far as Christian music is concerned. But that is another story for another day. Ask me sometime. I'll tell you all about it. The second time when God spoke in the New Testament was at the Transfiguration, which we covered as part of the lectionary a few weeks ago. I don't know whether you do that sort of thing. Apparently not. Okay, and this is in Matthew 17, 1 to 8, if you want to follow it through. And it says this: 6 days later, Jesus took him, Peter and James and his brother John, and led them up to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking to him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I can make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." And while he was speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them. And from the cloud a voice said, "This is my son, my beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." This is my son, my beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. Then when the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and do not be afraid." And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. This story is also covered in Mark 9, 2 to 8, and Luke 9, 28 to 35. You have to admire Peter. In the midst of Jesus glowing white and 2 ancient dead people turning up, Peter goes, "Hold that pose. Let me make you some tents. A shelter, some covering of some sort, just to keep it all together while we watch." What? He wasn't the brightest of the bunch, but ended up being the best, of course. Pay attention, Peter. Be alert to what's actually happening. But we do all sometimes get involved in the here and now, and we miss what Jesus is up to. A few years ago, several years ago, doesn't actually matter when it was, my wife and I went to Sudbury, which is a National Trust place where they have classrooms. My wife was a primary school teacher, and she was due to take a class there to go and see what it was like to be a Victorian child in class and to do other stuff, which I have no idea about because I'm not in the need to know bracket. But that's what it is. And we decided to make a bit of a do of it, and we decided we would go for the weekend and camp. And at the time I had a Series 2A Land Rover. Not that that's very important, apart from to me, because it was lovely. And so we decided to go camping. And so we chatted about what we would do and how we would do it. And I thought, I could take my guitar, sit around the campfire at night, have a few songs. And I thought, but it's only a little Land Rover. Got a lot of camping gear to put in. Probably not going to be room for it. Might be a bit dangerous. Perhaps won't bother. And then we started to prepare stuff, and Liz was making lists, as she does. And there's a list of food, a list of camp kit, list of cooking equipment, tent, sleeping bag, all that sort of thing. And she goes, "Yeah, Rob, off you go. Go down the camp store, get this, get that, get the other." And you go, "Righto, I'll do this, do that, do the other." And I thought, I could take my guitar. I could, sit around the fire, or an afternoon having a quick play, while Liz is probably busy doing schooly things. I could, sit out in the field, watch the lambs, play guitar, have a bit of a sing. Be great. And I thought, but it means stacking it in the back of the Land Rover with all the other stuff, and it might not be as safe as I probably want it to be. And I'll probably get dragged into doing other things with Liz anyway, so there probably won't be time. So I won't bother. And on the morning of packing, actually putting all the stuff in the Land Rover, there's this nag in the back of my head going, "Take your guitar, Rob." And I went, but there's not really much room left in the Land Rover. And it's, it might get crushed and it might fall out the back or something. And there's not really we're only there for a couple of nights, and there'll be no time to play it, and nobody wants to make time for that sort of thing. And it'll be just superfluous gear in the way. And I might have to leave it on its own in the camp, and didn't really want to do that. So I probably won't bother. And I looked at it, my guitar this is, in its case on my way out. You know when you go round and you do the last checks in the house, and then you go to the downstairs toilet just to make sure, and then off you go. And I last lingering look at my guitar, and I remember thinking at the time, I'll see you in a couple of days, you'll be all right. And so off we went. And we had a good time. We had a meal out on the Friday. We spent all day at the National Trust place on the Saturday. And we walked back on the Saturday past an old Wesleyan chapel that had been taken over by a different church, which I can't remember the name of now. I thought, oh, that's just up the road from where we're camping. That'd be lovely for Sunday morning. So on the Sunday morning, we fought our way through the lambs that are in the field where we were camping. They're very noisy lambs. And we dressed in our finest camp gear, which wasn't very fine, but knocked the mud off our boots and that sort of thing, and went to this lovely little chapel in the middle of nowhere in this little village just outside Sudbury. And we went in and we got a lovely warm welcome. The people was going, "It's lovely to see you, very nice. Would you like to come and sit down? You know, is it your first time here? You know, that sort of thing, as you do." And yeah, this is great. And then the pastor came round to see us, and he went, "Hello there, nice to see some new faces. Lovely to see you. Unfortunately today, all of our music team have gone to Spring Harvest, so we're going to have to sing everything a cappella." What I should have done, of course, is took my guitar. Listening to God is very important. Needless to say, I have never been on holiday since without my guitar. Just in case. But, dear. But some of us are slow to learn about these things, particularly me. The third and final time when God speaks in the New Testament is described in John 12. After Palm Sunday, after the big Palm Sunday parade into Jerusalem. This is John 12, 27 to 29. Jesus replied, "Now my soul is troubled. And what should I say? Father, save me from this hour. No, it is for this reason that I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name." Then a voice came from heaven. "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again. I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." The crowd standing there heard it, and said it was thunder. Others said, "An angel has spoken to him." Jesus knew exactly what was coming. As wholly divine, he knew God's plan. He knew exactly how this was going to go down. As wholly human, he probably had a pretty good idea of how painful this was going to be. He knew that it was this action, dying from crucifixion as a common criminal, this brave act, was for all humanity. The only way to pay the price for a race unable to save itself. This sacrifice would blot out all the sins of all and bring God's children back to God. This is the glory of God, to reconcile his people through the death of his Son. There is no thank you big enough for that paid debt. Nothing we can do but accept in grace the gift of love from God. So wonderful that he would watch his own Son die on a cross for us and for our salvation. And when the people ask, this is the love we ponder during Lent and celebrate at Easter. And when they say This is just a story from a book, an old book, written by men. Well, tell them this. This book is actually 66 books. From Genesis all the way through to Revelation. Written by 40-odd different authors. Over 1,500 years. That's, in old money, that's 1,500. In 3 different languages. Originally, I mean, we get it all in one language now because that's easier for us to read. But when they were written in 3 different languages. And yet, it tells one consistent and complete story from Genesis to Revelation. And cross-references itself. You want to guess how many times? Each one of these lines is a line that goes from one book to another, from one era to another, from one language to another, from one author to many different authors. And there are 63,000 cross-references between the books of the Bible. 63,000. 63,000 times something in one of the books is referenced to another book. No other book in history has even got close to that sort of continuity. Nobody in anywhere in the world, in anywhere in history, has ever done anything that spectacular. I look at this and I'm like amazed, absolutely flabbergasted. My gas has never been so flabbered, because that is just absolutely incredible. And it's not as though they were all colluding with each other, because some of them were 1,500 years apart. Some of them couldn't speak the language of others, and yet the story is complete. There are no errors between it all. Nothing contradicts another part of the Bible. And the story from start to finish is a complete series. It starts with the beginning of everything, and it ends with the renewing of everything. So when people say it's just a story, no, it isn't. If it was a story, it wouldn't look like this, would it? So when the inspirer of this book said, "This is my son, with whom I am well pleased, listen to him," that is exactly what we should do. Amen.